All right. So in terms of the conduct of the rest of the meeting, I'm advised that Leanne has requested that public excluded items 18 and 19 will be deferred to the council meeting on Thursday the 15th. So the meeting this Thursday. So that means we won't need to go into public excluded to deal with those items today. They'll be transferred to Thursday. So we've got two other open items to deal with. Item 13, flood management, item 14, Central City Shuttle update, and item 15, Central City biannual report, January to June. I propose that we deal with those in that order. And then, depending where Leanne's got to with the discussions that she's having, we would go back to the plan change 13-14 matter. Or if she's not ready at that time, we may need to take a short adjournment, and then we would come back with Leanne in the chair to continue that matter. So now let's move. So that's kind of the geography, the choreography, the planning of the meeting. So now let's move to item 14, the Central City Shuttle update. All right. So, Sarah, you're indicating that when we get there, you'll be happy to move this. Are there any comments? We take the report as read.
Yep.
Are there any comments from staff?
The only comment, kia ora koutou, the only comment I'd like to make is this was heard, a very similar report to this was heard by ECAN Council.
Last week, it was the Transport and Urban Development Committee last Wednesday. And they had a number of recommendations put in front of them by their staff, and they ended up resolving to work with the City Council and incorporate all our shared aims of improving patronage within the Central City as part of their normal public transport work program in this 2022-24 period, and to inform the next LTP without disrupting existing priorities. They didn't want to put any funding towards a Central City Shuttle feasibility work.
So is there anything inconsistent with what ECAN decided and what we've got in front of us here? I mean, this is really just receiving information. Is number 2's the substantive?
Number 2 is the substantive, and that would be heard as part of the annual plan. ECAN didn't put any money on budget or propose to put any money on budget. That would be a discussion that we would be coming back with to the annual plan.
I would imagine it would be a discussion for any informal governor-to-governor meetings at ECAN with a view to what they might want to put into their annual plan after the election. Yeah. All right, now that's good.
Without, I think you could just put a full stop after priorities.
Acknowledge this work will occur without disrupting. Yeah, and then we pick up the other in discussions that would occur between now and our annual plan and their annual plan. All right, so anything? Yes. Yeah, all right. So that's all of the commentary from staff. We'll move to questions. So Pauline, Tim, Aaron, Yanni. Pauline.
I don't know if you have the answer, but the old shuttle that we used to have, that was just council funded, wasn't it?
Yes,
on its own.
Yes.
So we could actually just go back to that system as well, because it doesn't actually have to sit in with the public transport strategy or program that we have. It could be a standalone project.
So, yes, it could be, and we've had that discussion previously along annual plan LTP processes.
Yeah.
We're also looking to work together with Christchurch NZ, so they're looking to do some work over the next wee while to help inform the next annual plan as well, and make sure that the sort of urban development, central city requirements, business development requirements can be built into whatever decision you make at that point. So that's
excellent.
going to carry on.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Aaron and then Tim and Tim and then Aaron and Yanni. Tim.
So 3.5.6 the e-bus charging infrastructure. So it is guaranteed to be an electric bus? No,
No, it's not guaranteed that would be the decision, but we do understand the desire to do that. That's part of what any report that comes back to you will need to include.
Okay, so we're not deciding, so we can,
You're not
when that
deciding
comes
anything.
back, yeah, because, I can only support an electric bus for this.
Okay, Aaron.
Yeah. Or hydrogen, Tim was meant to say as well. The sitting together so long, you can read his mind after a while. Yeah. So the suggestion had been made for a while about having like a zone zero thing on buses, that inside the 4 Abs you could catch any bus essentially for free, or whether that would be triggered by even a receipt from anywhere in the central city. Get on, oh look, I bought a coffee, and you can catch a shuttle. Has that been talked about?
That's different. What you're talking about is the fare review.
Yeah. So
it's the fare review that ECAN are undertaking. There's a shuttle and there's the PT network.
Right.
If we're gonna align them and work them together, that's different to running an independent central city shuttle that does what you as council want to do. So that's all part of what has to come back. So there is a desire to integrate it with the PT network. If that decision is made that way,
right,
that's what would need to happen.
Because I thought that suggestion, it's not mine, but I thought it was quite a good one.
But that's ECAN. It's not us. ECAN do the fares, not council.
Okay, so as the work's done working on the shuttle, is that an option or is it not an option?
It's in the option mix. Yes.
So it is that it might not be a single shuttle, it could be the use of the existing
PT
network,
and it could connect with the PT network as well. That's all of part of what needs to come back to you. There's actually a really big piece of work to figure out what is right, where it's right, what it connects, because the route that we used to have, the shuttle that we used to have, may not be the right one now. It might not connect the right businesses, the Central City Business Association and the businesses in it might not be what they want. So there's quite a big piece of work to do to move this forward.
Does the work ask the public as well what they actually
at some
want
point
to
it
and
will need
use?
to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Would we not do that at the start? Go, hey, do you want a shuttle? And then if we get this overwhelming yes, then we go, cool, let's go on with it. Or
I'm sorry, but isn't that the reason that we've got this report today? Because you had feedback through your LTP process, as did ECAN, that people wanted a shuttle, and you asked us to do this piece of work because of that feedback.
Yeah, but 3 submissions isn't a big survey. I mean, a good.
Okay, the question's been asked and answered, and you've also made it very clear, Lynette, through the answer to a couple of questions already. There's a sizable amount of work to do. There's a report coming back, and that'll have a whole heap of detail into it. Today isn't necessarily the opportunity to get into. Well, today isn't the opportunity to get into that degree of detail. There will be an opportunity to do that when that report comes back and when the thinking has been done. So, Yanni and then Pauline. Yanni.
Yeah, I was just interested in what impact this will have on other work that we've got going on, like the Bromley Transport Project, which seems to be very delayed, like the craft projects, which we have, a lot of work still to go. So I'm just, in the report it talks about not having an impact on our existing work program, but it doesn't mention those other projects that are delayed and that are struggling to get up to timeframes.
So your resolution acknowledges that it won't disrupt existing work priorities. So it won't disrupt existing work priorities. They're prioritised and they will get going. And we're here to talk about the shuttle, not the other projects.
So this project will not have any effect on those other projects that Yanni's mentioned, albeit that some of those projects are already delayed. This won't cause any further delay.
No, this will not cause further delay to those projects.
Will it stop us from actually being able to speed up those other projects and getting that work done?
No, it will not
Why not?
disrupt our existing priorities.
Can we say that it won't affect them at all? Like it won't speed them up, it won't slow them down, it won't have any effect on them whatsoever.
No, doesn't mean that other things won't, but this won't.
Yeah, which is what we're talking about today.
Yes.
And why won't it? Because it's a new resource.
Because we're not prioritising this work over other work. We're doing this work behind other priorities.
Right. So what confidence do you have that we can get this work done in the timeframes that sits in the memo?
This work done?
Yeah.
This work needs to be done. I'm sorry, I don't even know I don't know how to answer that one. This work will be done. You've asked us to do it. We've prioritised it in the work program. We have other pieces of work that we're trying to do, which I understand that
Right.
round the table you all have different priorities. We've prioritised that in line with what's required in the annual plan and the long-term plan, as you've required us to do. There are reasons that other pieces of work get delayed. This piece of work will not delay other pieces of work.
So point of order,
Not be the
Mr
reason.
Chair, it's
That
wading
question's
into
been asked about
management.
3 times now. All right. Pauline.
With the will of the mover, I'm wondering, and I assume Jake's seconder, that
Well, Sarah's indicated that she wants to move this.
well, she's already written down as moving.
Yep.
So I assume
Yep.
the second is Jake.
And seconded by Jake then,
But
yeah. So
number
move
2
Sarah, seconded Jake. Yep.
Could we put the words add a zero emission central city shuttle?
I mean, we've already got a whole pile of stuff.
That's already, it is already fundamentally in there. But, I mean,
I think it should
we
be
would,
in the...
we would need to bring you back a report that provides you all the options. One of those options, as nasty as it sounds, would have to be to use non-electric fleet, because there'll be a different cost implication.
Look, I
to it.
understand that. I'm just asking
trade-offs
if
for
we
it.
can put the word zero emission in there, because that is what the only thing I would support going forward, and I think it's the only thing this council can support going forward.
Pauline,
But if there's no
that's
will
what-
to do that, that's fine.
I just address it though, and one of the things that I'd be reluctant in is if we ended up with a system that was free within the 4 Avs, like Aaron was talking about that Mike raised about 2 years ago, then some of those buses aren't yet fully electric, and the ECAN fleet is moving to that over time. If we said zero emissions only, then that would preclude that option from the system and using the existing bus network for free.
All right. So without
So-
getting into a big debate about this now, Pauline, you've asked would the mover and seconder be comfortable with that wording change. I'm getting a sense that the mover wouldn't for the reasons that have just been
not needed.
explained. So the answer is no.
So I'll make it an amendment.
If you wanted to move it by way of amendment, it's open to you to do that if you've
I
got a
would.
seconder.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. So you're signalling an amendment.
Yes,
So you'll need to let staff know what the wording of that amendment
it's
is.
exactly like 2, but with a zero emission in front of central.
So your amendment is just to add the word zero emission to
there
clause
is
2.
fleet available.
Or
By the time this gets happening, we will have zero emission. That's a good indication.
Then they
of
won't. Like,
intention.
the ECAN ones won't.
All right. We'll get to
transfer for
debate in a
years.
minute. So Pauline, have you got a seconder for that?
I think, for you?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's moved by Pauline, seconded Yanni by way of amendment. That's fine. All right. So
Can I just check though that specific wording is not an amendment because it's different to. You could including that as an option would be an amendment.
so can we
It's just
not?
that it's number 2. It's a different number 2, which means it's not an amendment.
Why is it not an amendment?
Vary to number 2.
Yeah, it
means
is.
it's-
Yeah, because it would mean
So
that
what
the
you
other
could,
options
so your
wouldn't be allowed to be
amendment could be,
included.
Pauline,
Before
to
shadow
add
budget.
the words zero emission
Should we just do a
to
noting
existing
provision
clause
instead?
2.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's the same thing.
So would you be happy if we put a noting provision in instead, which asked for zero emissions vehicles to be a priority or to be prioritised or something like that? To be preference. To be yeah. It's just we don't want to preclude the free PT and the 4 Avs option.
I do if it's not electric, if it's not zero emission.
It doesn't hurt to know this is the first time this. There's still other decision
All right,
points in
we're
this
debating an
process.
amendment that hasn't actually been.
Mr Chair, if
It's not an
that's going to be palatable to the mover and seconder, I will go with the noting provision.
Okay.
All right, great, thank you. So if we can come up with a noting provision then that you, Pauline, are comfortable with and the mover and seconder are comfortable with, then we can remove the need for the amendment. That's good. Are there any other questions at this time? Yanni?
Yeah, I just wanted to check, given that government has announced all these different types of funding, if council put an application in for funding for this, could it be done sooner? Like, is there any,
Quite a lot of work to do.
Sorry, what sort of funding?
like, my understanding is there was the Streets for People funding, which has been allocated, and then there's also, isn't there another proposed lot of funding, surf funding?
so
I don't think it would
expressions of
qualify for
interest. And this was not part of their initial application, but there may be other opportunities
In the
next
future.
year or the following year because that's an annual.
Right, and could it be, if we wanted to do this sooner, could we do this out of some of the craft funding that we've allocated to PT?
No, we can't,
Because why not?
because that is to deliver the business case
Climate emergency.
as identified in the business case, and it wasn't identified in the business case.
Right. Okay.
And just for the council's awareness, we've had advice from NZTA that it isn't something they would support.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions? All right, so this has been moved and seconded. We've got this addition notes the preference for zero emission shuttle. Is there any debate? Jake?
Only to say it's great to see progress on this. Recently, I sent out a survey to my community to ask them what their thoughts were on the service. I flipped that onto the transport team. And I can absolutely assure my colleague to the left of me, in the physical geospatial sense, that the demand for this service is absolutely real, and he will soon see that in time as well. And yeah, I'm really happy that we go out with a broad range of options and consider all different types of bus and engine types, because I mean it's obviously going to be the preference of this council to support a zero emission service when this gets up and running.
Thank you. Tim?
You know, a central city shuttle is essential in a modern day city, and it's as much for locals as it is for tourists. I've been in Sydney, Melbourne, Bath, London, Edinburgh. They all have them. They're all free and they are wonderful. And I think it's an absolute must for a modern city, which we are trying to be. Thank you.
Yanni?
Thank you. I mean, this has been an ongoing issue for a number of years. And while I'm supportive of what's being proposed and that we can consider it, I think it is also important to acknowledge that there's communities that have lost their core bus services from ECAN, places like Bromley, Woolston, Linwood, have had their bus services cut, and we're talking about an additional level of service to an area of the city that already has extensive public transport going through it. It's just not free, so I welcome getting the information back, because for a long time, one of the ideas has been that we would simply within the 4 hours make free travel on the buses if it's not going to be citywide, which, you know, obviously there's been some reductions in the fares that has increased bus patronage. But, you know, I think it's really interesting when we reflect on the conversations we've had with ECAN, who have told us, I think, that they don't see that fares lead to an increase in people using the buses. But when we've seen with the COVID environment, when we reduced the fares, we had more people using public transport. So I think I look forward to getting this work done. I am a little bit concerned that it will impact on other priorities, but I appreciate that staff have given us an undertaking that it won't. But it would be good to acknowledge that we still have a lot of things that we need to get on and get done, and we can't just keep adding things to the list of things to be done without adding either additional resource or looking at the things that are falling behind and bringing them up to the timeframes that the community expected of us, particularly around things like the Capital Acceleration Fund. Thank you.
All right, no further discussion? Mike?
Look, I think this is a good step forward. A lot of us have been talking about this for a while, trying to get some action. So it's really good that we're finally seeing something a little bit more concrete, and that actually we're trying to do that in collaboration with ECAN. Look, I think if this was just a public transport project in itself, it would not stack up at all. But it's more than public transport. It's also around central city attraction and accessibility. And once in place, it can link people between, the museum and the botanical gardens around Cashel, Mo'ara, the hospital, Te Kaha, Parakore. It's actually really important that we have this as, if we want to have a city, I guess, a central city that's thriving and will benefit everyone in Christchurch and also greater Christchurch. We all know about some of the concerns of other areas of the bus routes, and actually a lot of that's picked up in PT futures. So I think we also need to be aware that some of the concerns that have been raised are actually, they are real concerns, but they are being addressed from a current public transport plan that we have on budget. This is something that we don't currently have. This is something that's been missed for a long time. This is something that we're hearing from a lot of people that they want reinstated. There's a huge opportunity in this space. with obviously the rebuild of our central city getting closer to being completed, the timing's right to now have this back. So I welcome this decision today.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. That's carried.